Okay, our final step on this guitar is just to get everything attached with the hardware. We're going to go ahead and do our little bridge pins, drill those out and then insert those. We need to notch out on the nut bone where the strings are going to be attached, attaching all of our tuning pegs, getting our strings attached, and then doing all the fine tuning after that, getting the action height right and everything just perfect. We're going to start off probably just with drilling those bridge pins, and we'll just use a 3/16 drill bit for that, and you're going to want to just go all the way straight through, up and down on each one. So let's hold that drill bit straight up and down and punch all the way through. Okay, you're going to take your bridge pin, and if you notice when you put that pin in there that it still sits really high, and that 3/16 drill bit just drilled it straight. These pins are tapered. So what I've done is I've taken a drill bit and I've just tapered the drill bit there, put some tape on it where you want to stop, and you're going to just ream that hole a little bit just with that tapered drill bit, and then you're going to go down just until where it gets to the tape. Then you can test that with that little bridge pin and just see how well that fits. Now you don't want these to go all the way down yet because we're going to put some good tight pressure on them, but we definitely want them lower. That one's looking a lot better as far as the height goes. So we're going to go through and just ream each of those holes just to get those bridge pins to drop down a little lower. We're going to notch that nut bone where the strings need to be, and what I've done is just made a little spacer board here just where the equal spacings needs to be, so you can line that up and just trace right where each of those little slots are at. That'll help get your equal spacing here. Now if your nut bone is a different size than this spacer, we can just measure and mark equal distances where we need those strings to attach, but this little spacer board is really nice to just get them marked right where they need to go. To notch those out, we'll just take a little file and we'll just make some little slots. There are some specialty files to do this that have the right gauge, but for this video I'm just going to show that just with a small little file, and you're just going to line it up right on your little mark and just kind of pull backwards, and you're just kind of notching out a little spot for that string to go into. We can always notch these deeper, and so you don't want to go crazy deep. You're just making a little notch for each one, and when we test it with the strings later on, we can always adjust the height and how deep we're going on these. So if you look, we're just getting a little notch cut on each one. Okay. So again, we're just notching each one. We can always adjust the height of those notches later. We're just getting a little bit of notch. Next, we're gonna go ahead and add our tuning pegs. We've got all those ready to go, and there's a left side and a right side on these, so we wanna make sure we put them on correctly. Okay, so you'll just take one of those tuning pegs. We'll place it into the hole here from the back side. Now, if you tip your guitar up, how do we know if it's a right side or left side? What I do is I look at it, and if you can read the words, right now it's upside down, so if we flip that to the opposite side, that's the way it's gonna go, because you can read the letters are facing upright on that. So this one is gonna be on that side over there. So 3 of them are left side, 3 are right side. And then on the opposite side, so if you kind of lay that back down, we're gonna take that other part of this tuning peg, the little washer and the other little screw part, and those just fit right down on top. I'm just kind of hand tighten that at first, and then we can take a little wrench and just kind of snug that a little bit tight. If this is not tightening up, maybe that headstock is too thick here, and these don't grab and actually screw together, you can either just forego the washer, or the other option is you can sand the back side of your headstock down, get it right thickness, and then we can re-lacquer that and adjust it, but hopefully you did your headstock the right thickness. These ones look like it's great. They're grabbing on just fine. And we'll go ahead and attach all 6 of those tuning pegs. And you can also adjust the angle that these tuning pegs are poking out. So if it's not crazy tight, you can kind of adjust that and just have them out however direction you want, whether you want them just perfectly straight out or if you want to follow the curve of your headstock. You know, get these however you want on that, as long as they don't bump into each other when you're turning them. So we'll get all 6 of those attached. So again, just position them how you want, and then I would just use that little wrench and just tighten them up so they're nice and snug. On the back side here, we're going to pre-drill some small little holes for those screws to fit in those. And what I've done is I've just taken a nail and just kind of tapered it down, just filed it down, so it makes a small little tiny drill bit. You could use a really small, maybe a 1/16 inch drill bit for this if you want. We're just going to pre-drill some holes and then attach our little screws. And again, just with a little screwdriver is great. So you're just making a starter hole, just a little pilot hole for each of these screws. Go ahead and attach those screws. Again, I do this just by hand, not a cordless drill, just to prevent stripping that screw. Okay, now we're ready to put the strings on this. So we've got all of our tuning pegs attached. We notched our nut bone, and we've got our bridge pin holes drilled. So we'll go ahead and take our pins and get them ready to put on. On your strings, I've just got some light strings here. These are our steel string. You'll notice that they're labeled like 1st and 4th strings, 2nd and 5th, 3rd and 6th. Make sure you don't mix those up, so keep them in the packaging until you're ready to put them on. And obviously you got to understand if you're going to do a right-handed guitar or left-handed guitar. We're going to do right-handed here. The first string, when you're holding that guitar, is your bottom string. That's the lowest string there. And then it'll work all the way up to the 6th string will be at the top. So just keep that in mind when you're ready. And I go ahead and start with that first string there. You'll notice on the string there's a little end of it that has kind of a little ball on the end of that wire, and that's going to just go through your little peg hole. Then you're going to take your little bridge peg. Make sure the little groove part is facing towards the front of the string as you place that in there, and get a little bit of tension on that string until that gets on there, and go ahead and press it down nice and tight. And then this first string is going to come all the way up, and it's going to come on to this tuning peg here. And we'll just kind of thread it through the hole. Now the important thing as you string these guitars is that the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings, so this is the 1st and then 2nd and 3rd, they're going to come and they need to wrap around from the inside to the out. So the string direction is coming from here and then around this direction, not from the outside in. So this is when you wind it. Also, you want to give yourself some slack. A little trick I like to do is just take my hand, kind of put it vertical and pull that string a little bit tight so it's just across my hand, and I'll just close all 4 of my fingers. They're nice and tight as that is, and that's usually about a good amount of slack to start with. Maybe have a little bit less than that if you want, but that way it gives you enough room to crank this. Now I don't have my quick tuning tool here, so we're going to do this by hand, but we'll start tuning that, getting that tightened up. And again, you're making sure that the string is wrapping around the correct direction from going from the inside out to the outside. So I kind of just hold it a little bit tight towards the tuning pegs. I start leaving the slack, and that's okay. It'll start to tighten up. What I also try to do is when I'm winding this is I try to make sure that string starts at the bottom of the tuning peg, and then as it wraps around, it's just getting higher and higher up on that tuning peg. We obviously have to be very careful not to over tighten, especially on our first string here, because this is the one that can break most often. So we're just going to get it fairly snug once it gets a little bit more tension on it, and then we'll test it out. As you're testing it out, again, don't over tighten, but once it starts making a good little sound here, this is a good way to now take a look at things. We're going to look at our action height. That's our height above the fretboard there. And then we're also going to look at the action height up at the nut. And then another thing we're going to do is just play each fret and just see if it buzzes anywhere, or just see if it's clean as you play each one. And then we'll just go down the line. So a couple of these are hitting the same note on some. Okay, so on this very first fret here, as we play this one, then we play that second fret, it sounds about the same sound. And that first one's buzzing just a little bit. And so what's happening is the string, as you're playing that first fret, the string is actually touching that second fret there. So that second fret is a little bit high. And so a couple things we can do on this. Just go ahead and take a file, even just a flat file here, and we'll loosen, take the string off, and just file that down. And then we also have a little fret file that's actually the shape of the fret wire, and so we can go over that after and reshape the fret. And that usually is what takes care of it. If we need to also, we can adjust our truss rod. We have our little truss rod here with an Allen wrench. We can adjust that to adjust the neck. We can change the height of our saddle. But we'll go through each of these strings, putting them on, testing out all the frets. It's going to take some time, and we'll get this all adjusted. Okay, so we've been looking at some of these frets, and there's still some buzzing and other things. It's a little bit low action still. So what we're going to do is raise that saddle. So we've loosened the string enough, pull that saddle out of there, and then I just get anything that you can shove in there. This is just a little strip of some little cardstock stuff that we can just fit right into that little saddle slot. Put your saddle back in there. That'll just let it sit up a little higher. And then as you tighten that string up, your action height will be just a little bit higher. We're just getting a little bit low action, so we're just raising that up. Okay, so right there we got the same sound, so same thing. We can either file it down, reshape it. I think that's what we're gonna do on that one right there. Just file that down, and then after we file it flat a little bit, we'll reshape it with the other file. You can just kind of wipe up any of the little excess after you file these. Clean them all up. Another thing that helps when you're doing this is to add more strings on. When you add those other strings, it's going to put a lot more tension on this neck, and it actually does bend the neck slightly. And so it's a good idea to go ahead and put all the strings on, test them out, and then we can make our adjustments. After that first string, I would go ahead and do the fourth one next, and we're going to get that bridge pin put in, again that little fourth hole there. Put some tension on it. And then this one, the fourth one, so this will be 1, 2, 3, and then fourth will be up here. And this one we're going to go through and around, again from the middle to the outside when it gets tuned. And we'll just make sure that goes around the correct direction from the middle to the outside. That fourth string sounds pretty good. A couple little spots, a little buzzing that we'll, again, do some little filing on the frets and getting them all adjusted. We'll just go through and put the rest of them on. Second string and fifth, and then third and sixth. Get them all on there, get them tightened up, test them all out, and then we'll take quite some time in doing all the adjustments that we need to get this to play just right. Second string. Should go to this one here. Again, I like to do a little trick with putting my hand underneath for the amount of slack to give it, and then kind of holding it so it doesn't move as we're tightening it up. Okay, we're getting our fifth string on, Fifth string again is going to go to this tuning peg here. Okay, our third string going in there. Again, making sure that little slot of the bridge pin is facing towards the front. And third one is going to be this one right here. Pulling some slack, winding it the direction again so that the string is going from the inside to the out as it goes around that peg. Okay, your sixth string is that biggest string there. Finish up this one with this one. It should go on this other close one here. Okay, so we got all the strings on. Again, when you get all these strings on, it's going to put a lot of tension on that neck, and so it might adjust some of the action heights or other things on other strings. And so before we get this fully tuned, a few things we can do. First off, all your excess little strings hanging on over here, if you want to just snip those off, you can. Some people like to curl them up or whatever. But when you snip them, don't snip them so close. You want to get a tiny bit left over. And then we're just going to, again, play each fret, each string, make sure they're all right, file anything if we need to, and then we'll get it all adjusted. Okay, once you have went through and got it all adjusted, most of these are really good. We're going to go ahead and tune it, and you can use whatever app you want or whatever guitar tuner you want. Go through and tune it up. You're going to notice, obviously, when you put brand new strings on any guitar, they're going to stretch and it'll go out of tune often. And so you'll just have to keep tuning it, and eventually they'll stretch. But we got them all on there. Let's see if it plays. An acoustic guitar, handmade.